The Chicago Bears barely beat the Las Vegas Raiders, and there's a lot they still need to get better at as the schedule gets more difficult from here.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. On the show today, I want to go through some of the things the Bears still need to get better at with some words from Ben Johnson on the run defense and some of the things that are going wrong in that aspect, the running game on offense, and why he doesn't blame DeAndre Swift really at all for what the Bears are struggling to get on the ground game. And I also want to talk about Caleb's batted passes and whether that's just kind of a Max Crosby being a really smart pass rusher thing or more of a lingering question mark about Caleb Williams' game. But let's start on defense, because we talked yesterday about how this is kind of such a weird defensive performance where you've got 4 turnovers, so you can't really be upset with the defense, and yet, still giving up 24 points, and the Raiders are gashing you all over in the running game, and Geno Smith had a couple nice passes in there as well. It's like sometimes it felt too easy for the Raiders to move the ball, as evidenced by in that game, the Raiders punted only one time. Every other drive ended with either points or the 4 turnovers, and so it kind of felt like all or nothing, boom or bust, and that's an area that they need to start getting better at defensively. And so I want to try and diagnose a little bit of what's going wrong with the running game. It's certainly not one single issue that, if you just fix the defensive line, then problem solved, or you just, tackle better, problem solved. No, it's like a combination of things here. And I guess let's start with head coach Ben Johnson giving his diagnosis of the defensive performance and specifically like what went wrong in the running game. Because I think he has good perspective on like the overall, but then also the specifics of this aspect they're struggling in.
Yeah, we always, each week we have keys to victory. And, that was the biggest thing that we missed this week was our run defense. We really felt like this was a week we needed to get back on track in that regard. But other than that, we hit on the turnovers. We hit on being great in our situational football. We were excellent in critical downs, 2-minute situations. And so even though we missed on one of the big ones for us here this week, the other ones came through for us in a big way. So end of the day, the most important thing is limiting the opposing offense in the number of points scored. And so if that means that we're giving up some rushing yards, but yet we're keeping them low on the scoreboard, we'll manage with that. No one likes seeing 6 yards, 7 yards per carry. Like that's not what Chicago Bears football is about. That's not what we want to be about. And so we're working very diligently on getting better in that regard. I think the most important thing that we're looking at as a staff and as players is how do we get better at some of our fundamentals. We're not shedding blocks to the degree we'd like to yet, or at least as consistently as we'd like to yet. And we're not making tackles in space as well as we're capable of. We did enough live tackling over the course of training camp. I thought we'd be a little further along in that regard in the first 4 games. And so still a work in progress. Like anything, you look at something where you might be a little bit deficient, you make it a point of emphasis, and then I know our guys will take that to heart and they'll respond.
So a good overall assessment there from the head coach, and important context for the whole conversation of like, yes, the defense, for whatever mistakes they made, did enough to help them win the game. Like at the end of the day, when we talk about room for improvement, they still won the game and played well enough in this contest. But you just kind of know that they got to be better when it's going to be, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense, or, the even the Commanders, if Jaden Daniels is back next week after the bye week, that could be tough. So when I look at this Bears running game, Ben Johnson mentioned, getting off of blocks and tackling. Those are definitely two major issues. The third thing I would throw in there is just gap integrity in terms of specifically linebackers, but sometimes the safeties getting to where they need to go. Like, the defensive line isn't doing a great job of keeping blockers at the first level, but even when the linebackers are clean, Tremaine Edmonds is not running into the right gaps. He's not filling the holes. Like, he'll either get too far outside and then let somebody cut back, or more often he gets too far inside and doesn't give up, and then gives up the outside contain that he's supposed to usually funnel it back inside properly. But sometimes he'll have two gaps and he'll pick the wrong one, or he'll pick a gap too early and leave the running back a lot of free space to be able to run there. But then I think, I think the edge rushers not named Montez Sweat, especially against the Raiders, struggled to funnel runs back inside the way they need to, that oftentimes tackles have been able to kind of widen plays more and more, that technically they kind of they have to cut in from where the edges are, but not until the edges are moved out so far that it creates a lot more space for the running back to have room to work out there. And then we get to tackling, which I don't want to say is the biggest issue of them all, but certainly I think it's an underrated issue on this Chicago Bears defense. The Bears miss a lot of tackles. I don't have a good source of like team-wide missed tackle totals, but I would bet you the Bears are in the upper half, if not the top 10 in the NFL in total number of missed tackles. Your primary culprit there is Noah Sewell. Noah Sewell leads the NFL with 10 missed tackles so far through 4 games. He's tied with Edgerrin Cooper of the Green Bay Packers with a total of 10. I think 6 of those have been in running game, 4 of those have been in pass coverage. Like, Sewell does a good job, or certainly a better job than Edmonds, of attacking and getting to the right gap, but he misses a lot of tackles. I mean, in this game against the Raiders, Ashton Genty had 9 total missed tackles on his runs. I think another couple more as a receiver, including in the red zone, one on Tremaine Edmonds for a touchdown, which Tremaine Edmonds is second on the Bears in missed tackles with 5. Your 2 linebackers are your 2 leading tackle missers. And I guess you can kind of understand that linebackers probably have the most total tackle attempts. And so when you just have a lot of attempts, you're going to have more misses. And as a percentage, maybe it's not quite that bad. But when you look across this Bears defense as a whole, you can look at it also by percentage of tackling opportunities missed. And Sewell is, if you want to include, I guess, Dominic Robinson, like some of the defensive linemen that don't have very many tackles technically have a higher missed tackle rate, and Edmonds' missed tackle rate is a little bit lower than as a result, but those two have been by far the 2 biggest contributors there, where like it's for extra free yards for the other team, even when you are in the right position. Kevin Byard has also missed 4, although he's been better the last couple weeks. Tyreek Stevenson's missed 4. He's been better the last couple weeks. He had 3 against the Lions in week 2. So like he kind of had 1 bad tackle game that skews that, but Stevenson missed 1 against the Cowboys and none against the Raiders. So I think that's improving. Then, Brisker has 3, Dexter has 2, Robinson has 2, McLeod has 2. Almost everyone across this Bears defense has a missed tackle. The only players who play a lot who haven't missed any tackles are Grady Jarrett and Tano Passanio. I guess you can throw Chris Williams on the defensive line in there. But everybody else has missed at least 1, and you've got 9 different guys that have missed 2 and 5 different guys that have missed 3 or more. So it really does add up, where it's not like they're getting always burned for these huge plays. The missed tackle doesn't always, or rarely has it led to the, rarely has it led to the breakaway run. Ashton Genty had the 1, but other than that, they've pretty well been able to kind of limit the big damage. But it's just it's the extra 4 yards here after the catch. It's the extra 3 yards here on the run when the running backs break the tackle that really just are those kind of hidden free yards that make the difference in this defense feeling a lot more vulnerable than we thought it might be. Now, I'm not sure that the inverse is the case in the Bears running game, right? I don't think it's a lack of missed tackles necessarily in the running game there, though that's probably a contributing factor here. But Ben Johnson himself came out and pretty clearly said, I don't think our running game is a DeAndre Swift problem. I don't think DeAndre Swift is the problem in our lack of running game. So we'll hear Ben Johnson's explanation there and what some of the other issues are and why they're going to be kind of tricky to fix. That's next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by Mizzen and Main. You know the saying, look good, feel good. The problem is most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp but feel stiff or hot and just high maintenance. And that's why there's Mizzen and Main. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they've perfected it ever since. They can help you go from the office to dinner or even out on the golf course and still feel comfortable all day. It's the feel of athletic wear, but the look of professional menswear. Right now, Mizzen and Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with our promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Main, M-A-I-N.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL20 for 20% off. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, not only do you get the winnings from your $5 bet, but you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So especially this Sunday with no Bears game on TV, maybe a little bet can help you give a little more something to help the games feel more exciting. Because whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So betting on a game, a prop bet, any other team, any other sport, you hit that $5 bet, you're getting $300 in bonus bets. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. The Bears haven't been able to find an answer for the running game on defense or on offense. And after 4 weeks, it seems like they're trying all sorts of stuff and really just not able to get anything going. And everyone wants to be quick to say, hey, Bears don't have running back talent. Swift's not good enough. Monangai's not good enough. Roschon Johnson can't even see the field. They need to trade for a running back at the bye week and fix this running game. And I'm not here to say that DeAndre Swift is some great running back and that he deserves 0% of the blame. But I also have said before on this podcast, I think if you picked up Saquon Barkley and put him in this Bears offense, or picked up Derrick Henry and put him, or pick your running back, take any other, Jonathan Taylor leads the NFL in rushing. You put Jonathan Taylor in this Bears offense, I'm not sure they're a top 10 running game group in the NFL. Like, the offensive line is a very, very real part of the problem here. And I want to talk more about this later this week on the podcast. But I do wonder if, moving Theo Benedict and now Ozzie Trapillo and the switches on the offensive line, I feel like that can also make life more difficult for the offensive line when it comes to communication and cohesion. I think there's something to be said about keeping the same five together for a little while here, and maybe that you try and put better players in there, but there's also a step back in terms of guys just having that muscle memory, working next to each other and really knowing through and through what the guy next to you can do. But I also am feeling like even better, even a switch at left tackle. Like Ben Johnson specifically said they like Theo Benedict as a better run blocker than Braxton Jones, essentially. He didn't use the exact words, but it was implied. He's like, we really love Theo's run blocking, and that's why we put him in a left tackle. So that's, even if you have a player who's an upgrade at that position, I'm still not sure it's even a perfect fix there. Because one of the things that stands out to me is when I think about the skill sets of these offensive linemen, it seems like they kind of have a mixed bag that doesn't mesh together super well. Like, they signed Drew Dahlman in free agency, knowing that in Atlanta, Drew Dahlman seemed to be at his best, not only as a run blocker, but in those outside zone runs, right? He's an athletic center who can get out in space and try and move people horizontally a little bit more than downhill vertically. Jonah Jackson's always been a little bit more of a zone athletic type of guard there. And Braxton Jones too, I think, is more of a horizontal athlete than a downhill gap scheme power runner. But I think Darnell Wright has a little bit more of that nasty downhill power running type. I think he can do the outside zone too. I think he's probably the most scheme versatile of this group, but I think he favors the gap scheme a little bit more. And then Joe Thuney, especially at this age, I think favors the downhill power counter gap scheme plays and doesn't flow side to side as well as he used to and isn't quite as natural in that zone offense. So like there's not really a perfect run scheme combination here that everyone is going to be happy with. And if you have some guys struggling in one and some guys struggling in the other, then no matter what you call, you're going to have somebody not in necessarily the best scheme for them. And that can be part of the challenge here. But I think Ben Johnson looks at this and says, yes, DeAndre Swift maybe could do more, but O-line's got to block better, tight ends got to block better, wide receivers got to block better. And Ben Johnson says, hey, head coach has to do a better job too.
Yeah, I don't think our running struggles were a reflection of DeAndre Swift. I think he's a guy that continues to run the ball very hard, even though the yards per carry aren't where any of us want it to be right now. He's as frustrated as anybody right now. He's very prideful in what he can do and what he brings to the table. And I don't feel like everybody on offense yet is pulling their weight, and that's myself included. There's a number of things from yesterday's game I have to do a better job of. There's a couple calls I was getting in late. There's a couple things that the coaching staff, myself, we could have coached up better to give us a better chance there. And then there were some things just execution-wise that we knew what we were going to do, but the techniques, the fundamentals, we didn't adhere to them when we needed to. And so when you look at it as a whole, it was a mess, man. I'm just not proud of what we put on tape. I think it's a reflection of myself. I always take it personally. I saw us getting better the first 3 weeks and in a lot of ways on offense, and then this was just a little bit of a step back for us. And so, like I said, the bye week's coming at a good time, and we're really going to be able to take a good look at ourselves and do a little soul searching. It's always good when you play that poorly and yet you're still able to come.
So I do think DeAndre Swift deserves probably a little more blame than Ben Johnson's willing to give him there. But I also think Ben Johnson's pretty unquestioned confidence in Swift and endorsement of Swift tells you they're not trading for a running back. They're not making a big running back move. He's very clearly saying, hey, we got full confidence in Swift. He's not the problem. And so don't expect anything major to happen over the bye or over the trade deadline here. I do think there is more Swift can do. I mean, I think people point a lot to the yards before and after contact stat, and you can point to missed tackle stats that Swift is not making guys miss nearly as much as you'd like to see and as much as he should. And I think that's all valid. But I also think that's sort of a known commodity thing with DeAndre Swift. Like, I think when I look at this Bears backfield, I think of DeAndre Swift as a player who, if you give him good run blocking, he can make great plays. But he can't make good plays out of bad run blocking, right? Like, you think about, because people might say, well, you give any running back some good run blocking and they're going to get yards. That's true. I think Swift, his speed and his skill set is specifically adept at like squeezing the most out of blocks when they're good. Like when they're good, he'll get great. But I think Kyle Monangai, on the other hand, is the opposite. I think Kyle Monangai, his skill set is when the blocking's bad, he can get something out of it. But the problem with Monangai is when the blocking's good, his ceiling is a lot more limited. Like he's not going to have the big breakaway plays. Like he's not going to be able to take a perfectly blocked play and turn it into a great play the same way that Swift can. So it feels to me like Monangai is better positioned right now to help your offense. But it's not to say that like Swift is therefore like useless or bad. I think he is a little bit more blocking dependent, but then does more with the blocking he gets once he actually gets it. Whereas Monangai is less dependent on the blocking, but then can't do as much with the blocking once he actually gets it. So we're still going to see Swift as the lead back. Healthy dose of Swift, trying to find different ways to get it working with him, trying to find different schemes, whether it's, they ran a lot of outside zone against the Raiders and had mixed success. The inside zone's been hitting a little bit better. Some of the gap man scheme stuff like duo up the middle's been hitting a little bit better. So they'll self-scout at the bye week and try and figure out something to get this running game going. But I don't have a good answer as to like, here's the thing you do to solve it. Sometimes it's just like, guys got to block better. Like at the end of the day, guys got to block better. Just like on defense, like, you just got to tackle and shed blocks better. Like it's technique stuff, as Ben Johnson said. They know what they need to do. They just got to go do it better. And then it's up to this coaching staff to actually like get them to do it better. I think it's a similar thing in terms of Caleb Williams. Because one of the things that came out of this Raiders game is not like a major concern, but I want to gauge how much of a concern it should be. The batted passes, because right now, Caleb Williams, I believe, is tied for the league lead in batted passes so far this season, but it might not be as bad as that sounds. So we'll take a look at how concerned we should or shouldn't be about this quote-unquote issue next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. Because this isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual action formula so you can go the distance. The effect can last up to 36 hours, giving you confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet.com and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET. Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. The batted passes seem to be more of an issue against the Raiders than any other individual game we've seen from Caleb Williams, but I think it highlighted this as sort of a longer-term trend for him. Like, Caleb Williams has had 7 passes batted this season. 3 against the Raiders, 1 against the Cowboys, 1 against the Lions, 2 against the Vikings. So at least 1 in every game this season. And if you look back at his rookie season, he had 12 passes batted, and it wasn't every game, but it ended up being about every other game. He had 3 in his first game against the Titans. He had 2 against the Jaguars, 2 against the Patriots, but otherwise, 1 or 0 in a lot of other games. So it hasn't necessarily been this like persistent problem, but it seems like it's peaking a little bit more. And I think it's something to just sort of take a slightly closer look at here. First of all, when we talk about batted passes, I think it's worth noting that the total number of batted passes isn't always the best measurement here, because quarterbacks attempt a different amount of passes. Just like we talked about, missing tackles as sort of a rate of missing tackles. Like, Caleb Williams has attempted 130 passes, but other quarterbacks have attempted fewer passes and had a higher portion of their passes batted. So he's attempted a lot of passes this season, so he's going to have more batted passes than quarterbacks who had fewer passes batted. But I will say this: Caleb Williams is tied with Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes for the most passes batted this season. All 3 of those quarterbacks have 7 passes batted. And I think on the surface there, I find myself thinking, well, no one's worried about Patrick Mahomes' batted passes, and Mahomes has, I think, fairly consistently had a decent number of passes batted over the course of his career. Like, this is more than usual for him, but like every year, he's approaching those double-digit type numbers here. And Kyler Murray too, like, kind of a known thing that with a shorter quarterback you might have more passes batted, but it's not like a thing that Cardinals fans are wondering, like, is this going to derail Kyler Murray's career? Like, it's something that is a known thing that they just are able to deal with. But then you break it down a little bit further in terms of percentage of their passes that they've had batted this season, brings Caleb Williams down a little bit. Over the course of the first 4 games, Caleb Williams has had 5.4% of his passes batted. It's behind Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor for 3rd most. He and Kyler Murray have attempted the exact same number of passes total, and have had the exact same number batted. They've had 7 of their 130 passes batted, equal numbers there for each of those 2 quarterbacks. And I should say, these numbers are all before the Monday Night Football stats are in and official. So, there could be, some sort of slew of batted passes, and maybe it could change the numbers for either the Jets quarterbacks could go even higher, but Dolphins, Bengals, Broncos here, we'll see. Because it's worth noting, like, last year, the league leader in batted passes was Bo Nix as a rookie quarterback. And again, I didn't necessarily hear a lot of like, is that a problem for Bo Nix? But your leaders in batted passes last year, Bo Nix, Kirk Cousins, Jaden Daniels, 1, 2, 3. So I don't think batted passes are the end of the world, and yet it is still something that definitely does hurt the offense a little bit. I think the question here is the batted passes issue Caleb Williams doing something wrong, or an opportunistic defense and an opportunistic Max Crosby making a couple of plays? And I think in some ways it can be both. Like I think one of the batted passes against the Vikings was a screen pass where Andrew Van Ginkel was just running upfield and trying to get a hand on it. Like that's not necessarily a Caleb Williams issue there. Like the play is to throw the screen. He throws the screen. It's not like a flat screen pass. There's just a player who steps in the way of the passing lane because he sees the screen developing quickly. And Max Crosby, one of him was in that game too. Like I think there are going to be, every quarterback has passes batted, and some of them are situations like that where defender makes a good play and sniffs something out and gets on top of it. On the other hand, you could argue Caleb Williams' release angle is a little bit too low, and when he fires some of these lasers in, I think about the touchdown to Rome Odunze too, like the high velocity passes tend to come off more flat. They don't have as much arc on them because you're trying to get the ball there quickly. Like if you just think about the amount of distance the ball has to travel to get there, like if it has an arc on it, like if you throw it higher, then it takes longer to get there because it has more space to go through the air, whereas it's flat, straight line, closest point between two distances, straight line. When he wants to fire a ball in there, it comes out low, and it's easier for defensive linemen to get their hands up on it. So like some of this is Caleb trying to fire passes in there. Some of this is also an offensive line that needs to hold up its end of the bargain in the batted passes world. That, the offensive lineman can't necessarily stop a defender from jumping, but you can, first of all, you can engage a defender a little bit more. Like there were a couple plays where Max Crosby stopped pass rushing, stood there, and was just waiting for Caleb Williams to throw, and then jumped up and swatted it down. And when Max Crosby is just standing there, that leaves the offensive lineman just standing there. And they could go block him, go push him, go disrupt him. When you see, hey, Max Crosby is no longer trying to get to the quarterback, go get him. Be aggressive. And I understand you don't want to step forward and then be out of place and let Max Crosby get around you and get to the quarterback. Sure, it's easy. It's a lot easier to sit at home and say, hey, go get Max Crosby, instead of them being, I think, understandably concerned about him getting the quarterback and saying, well, if he's that back there, then he's not getting the quarterback, so let me just stay here and keep my quarterback clean. It's not an easy decision or read for an offensive lineman to make. But more importantly than that, when a defensive lineman jumps up to bat a pass, their arms are obviously above their heads in the air. And when their arms are above their heads, that means, just like boxing, there is nothing in between you and that player's chest and abdomen and stomach. And so it is every offensive lineman's responsibility, and this is taught, I don't want to say at a young age, but this is taught at the high school and college football levels long before you get to the NFL. The phrase they say is punish jumpers. When someone jumps, you punish him as the offensive lineman. It is legal within the play of football for an offensive lineman to push a jumping defensive lineman out of the air and onto the ground. And when you jump up and then are pushed by a 300-pound man back down into the ground and you land on your butt or your tailbone or your back, it hurts. It does not feel good. And it makes defensive linemen hesitate just a little bit to jump next time, especially if you get a good push on him. You can essentially punch him in the stomach. You have a free shot. I mean, if you literally wind up one arm and punch, like boxing, punch him in the stomach, referees might kind of catch that, but a full two hands and you use the base of your palms and just essentially punch him, but just not with a fist, but punch him with your hand into the stomach, knock the wind out of him. Sorry, it's a violent football game. I'm not saying hurt him. You don't want to injure anybody, but you do want to cause him pain. Is that fair? You don't want to leave him with a lingering injury, but you do want to cause him some amount of pain that makes him regret doing that again. Non-permanent pain. I think can we agree on non-permanent pain as an acceptable or non-indefinite pain or whatever as an acceptable offensive line response there. And we didn't see much of that. And we haven't seen much of that. Just push him. If he's jumping, just push him. Just boom. Just push him back, because A, you might disrupt his batted pass attempt if you get him on the way up, if you're quick enough reaction, but then B, even if he gets the batted pass, you got a little something from him too. And to be able to get that kind of hit on Max Crosby, you don't get too many opportunities to do those. So I'd like to see the Bears offensive line punish jumpers. And then for Caleb, maybe, sometimes he's just going to have to put him on flat, high velocity throws. sometimes maybe he can afford to take a little bit off it and release it a little bit higher and avoid some of those batted passes. But overall, I'm not overly worried about the batted passes, but I think it's something we should keep an eye on moving forward, and we will right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen, be sure to check out Locked On NFL. Comes out twice a day with Tyler Rowland in the morning and Tony Wiggins in the afternoon, and I co-host Tuesday mornings with Tyler Rowland. We broke down the Monday Night Football games and all the biggest stories coming out of the NFL over the weekend, so go check that out for your second listen. Come on back tomorrow. Make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.